Hi, I'm Max Ludington, the president of the Jackson Hole Land Trust, and welcome to the Jackson Hole Land Trust first attempt at a video newsletter. It's something new this year, and we think it'll give you a little more insight into what it is that's been going on at the Land Trust. There's lots going on, all kinds of conservation protections underway, and we wanted to share a lot of that with you. This video newsletter is going to give you some additional insights into what our work is and a great chance to see some of our projects up close. Just some nuts and bolts things. You have the opportunity to look down and skip around to different chapters about our work that you'd like to check out, so feel free to do that. Some things you will see though are some restoration projects and land stewardship, some new protection projects, some profiles on our donors, and some new projects that we have underway. So we look forward to walking you through all of that. Thank you all so much for those of you who support our work. We could not do this important work without you, and we hope you enjoy this video newsletter.
The Wind River Tribal Buffalo Initiative is a new nonprofit that was established here to help grow the capacity for the Shoshone and Arapaho tribes to integrate buffalo back into our lives again, whether that's academically, educationally, culturally, spiritually, or nutritionally. Buffalo is foundational to who both of our tribes were. Our ancestors were dependent on buffalo for sustenance and for foods, clothing, tools, shelter. Was foundational to our ceremonial belief systems that we still continue to practice among both tribes. So in order to restore buffalo, we have to get out of the paradigm of thinking and treating them as cattle or like livestock, and think about them more for their ecological role as a keystone species. If we want to talk about climate resiliency or carbon storage, food sovereignty, food security, we have to change our priorities on how our lands are used. And the colonial paradigm has been imposed on not only us as a people, but also on how we use our land. And unfortunately, for 150 years, most of our lands have been prioritized for cattle. So by reacquiring land and assisting in changing land use on our tribal lands, then we can establish habitat, we can grow the capacity to integrate buffalo back into our diet, ensure that our young people are included in that process, and that we have restored them in a way that's more holistic, or where we're incorporating more of our indigenous science. And so as we restore buffalo, protect them as wildlife, and change land use, then we're implementing those similar types of philosophies and paradigms that are more aligned with the values of the Shoshone and Arapaho people. So this effort entails buying land back, fee lands that were illegitimately acquired through the General Allotment Act that opened up reservations for homesteading. And so, even though these lands were sold for pennies per acre back in the late 1800s, they're now worth about $55,000 to $7,000 an acre. And the tribes don't have the capacity to buy land back for buffalo habitat. And so aligning with conservation organizations, groups like the Jackson Hole Land Trust, then we can work together to really acquire some of these lands, restore them as buffalo habitat, keep them in conservation, and restore them to rightful ownership of the tribes.
The Jackson Hole Land Trust work with the Wind River Tribal Buffalo Initiative is an important part of our Wind River program. It's expanding our work in that region and protecting some critically important lands. More importantly, it's touching on really significant cultural values, wildlife restoration, and agricultural values that are very important to that community. It's an excellent opportunity for us to work with a new community and expand the impact of our work. It's also about taking care of the land, and you're going to see more of that in this next piece as well.
My name is Trevor Bloom. I'm an applied ecologist with the Nature Conservancy based here in Jackson, Wyoming. We are at the National Museum of Wildlife Art, which is a 69-acre property in easement from the Jackson Hole Land Trust. So only about 2 acres is actually the museum, and then there's about 65 acres that's like this. That's a conservation easement. In the winter, we have mule deer using this site, pronghorn antelope. We've even seen bighorn sheep walking across the hillside. It's a pretty amazing place to have right outside of the town of Jackson. We have a project here that was really sparked by the wildfire in 2019, but it really raised an opportunity to study wildfire here in Jackson, where we're starting to get more and more wildfires that are caused by this little invasive species called cheatgrass. And cheatgrass is a non-native plant, and it arrived here in the United States about 100 years ago, but only arrived in Teton County in the last 20 or so years. And in the last 5 years, we've started to see it become a really big problem. So what we're testing here in partnership with the Jackson Hole Land Trust and the Nature Conservancy is what is the best practice for treating this cheatgrass and also getting native plants to recover after fires. Because this property is owned by the museum and held in easement from the land trust, we were able to set up a relatively complicated experiment, something that would be much more challenging to accomplish on Forest Service land or National Park Service land. The ability to do it here on private land let us try some really innovative techniques that would have been challenging to do on public land, but the results of the experiment that we're doing here is something that we're going to be able to apply across all lands in Teton County.
The National Museum of Wildlife Art's been a great conservation partner for the Land Trust. They've protected 34 acres, and that's been under conservation easement since 1995. The lessons that they're learning about how the ecosystem recovers from fire has great applicability on our other conservation easements. We're excited to see other landowners take those lessons learned and apply them on their properties elsewhere in the ecosystem.
Hi, my name is Mika Burdette. I am the program manager here at Jackson Hole Land Trust. I work in community conservation, and I'm so excited to be out here on High School Butte today to show you one of our really exciting new partnerships. If you look to my left, we have a bird box out here with some actual little birds in there. This was in partnership with Coulter Elementary, Habitat for Humanity, and JH Wildlife Foundation. High School Butte is a beautiful example of how we activate our open access spaces. We're able to preserve these really beautiful scenic views even on a dreary day like today, protect it for our wildlife population, and also activate the space for not only fun ways to hike around, but also educational opportunities. Thanks for coming up with me today. Hope to see you guys out on some of our other properties, and stay tuned for news on how we're activating our spaces with our other community partners.
The Jackson Hole Land Trust acquired 18 acres on the southwest portion of High School Butte in 2020 as part of our community conservation program. And that provides a great opportunity for the community to actually get out and enjoy our conservation properties, to interact with it, as you just saw through our partnership with Teton County School District. We're hoping to open up and have more community interaction opportunities on that property in the future.
My name is Alex Few. I'm the Regional Director of Park County Open Lands, the newest program of the Jackson Hole Land Trust. Park County Open Lands was an idea without a name in conversations among longtime local residents going back a decade or more. There's a sentiment among local residents that open space in Park County is at risk. The county has seen 3 times the number of requests for subdivision in the last few years over normal amounts pre-COVID. The county has just finished a land use planning process, and in that, they identified open space as one of the values most important to county residents. Open space provides for our agricultural operations, which are really the lifeblood of some of our local communities. Open space also provides wildlife habitat, and those same farms and ranches are an important piece of that. And wildlife are the essence of so many parts of our culture in Park County. We're off to a running start at Park County Open Lands. We've had unprecedented interest from across all of the communities within the county in understanding more about conservation easements, and we're excited to bring this new tool to local communities.
The Jack's Hole Land Trust has long identified the private lands in Park County that house both agricultural values and wildlife values as a conservation priority. We're really excited to launch our Park County Open Lands program to address those conservation priorities now. The connectivity across our regions is really important. Increasingly, wildlife data and collar data is tracking and showing the importance of all of our regions and how they function together as an ecosystem. With the launch of this program, we're really excited now to be representing all of Northwest Wyoming and addressing each of those communities' unique conservation needs. Our work wouldn't be possible without the support of our communities and the donors within those communities. We're really excited to share one of those donor stories with you now.
I choose to live here because it's a unique place, and it's absolutely magical to live in an ecosystem full of other animals, of an intact ecosystem. You can go to any number of other ski towns, and they're wonderful ski towns, and they have no wildlife at all. If you go to Europe, you might see a deer or a rabbit, but there's no wildlife, basically. We're in a race to protect the wildlife that lives here. We're in a race to protect the migration corridors that are so critical. People think that because 97% of the land is public that the animals must be fine. That's not true. First of all, the 3% that's not public is riparian typically, and that's where the animals are, and that's where the big houses are, or are going to be if we're not careful. One of the things the Land Trust does is protects the migration corridors, which extend way beyond Yellowstone, way beyond the Teton Park, way beyond our valley, and in some cases, hundreds of miles south, north, east, and west of us. So I love that project because it's hard work, and that's what's going to protect the animals. The migration corridors are critical, and if they can't move up to the high ground in the summer and back down to warmer in the winter, maybe 100, 200 miles south of us, then they're not going to make it. So I love that the Land Trust is doing that hard work down in Green River Valley and other places to protect these critical migration routes. Without them, we wouldn't have what we have here.
Thanks to Kirk and all the donors who support our important conservation work. We couldn't do it without you. We hope you've learned more about the Jack's Hole Land Trust through this video newsletter and all the communities in which we're engaged. And we really hope to see you out at a community event this summer.